They called it the Valley of Silence, not because it was quiet, but because no one who went in ever came back to tell what they heard. Lieutenant Marcus Chen stood at the edge of the firebase, staring into the fog-choked ravine that carved through the mountains like a wound. His orders were simple. Extract a downed pilot, Captain Sarah Voss. She'd been missing for 72 hours. After her surveillance plane went down deep in enemy territory, intelligence said she was alive. Intelligence also said the area was clear. Marcus had learned long ago that intelligence was often wrong about both. His team was small, 4 men. That's all command could spare. Sergeant James Ruiz, a medic with steady hands and a steadier heart. Corporal Devin Clark, a sniper who never missed and never spoke unless he had something worth saying. Private First Class Liam Cross, barely 22. Fresh enough that his gear still smelled like the factory, eager enough that he volunteered for everything. And Marcus himself, carrying the weight of 17 missions, 3 Purple Hearts, and a growing suspicion that his luck was finally running out. They moved out at dawn. The fog clung to them like a living thing, swallowing sound, swallowing light. The valley was dense with jungle and older things. Abandoned villages, rusted artillery from wars fought before any of them were born, hence stories. The locals refused to enter. They said the valley was cursed, that men didn't die there, they just disappeared. Marcus didn't believe in curses, but he believed in ambushes, and the valley was perfect for them. 3 hours in, Devin stopped. His hand went up. Everyone froze. Movement, 200 meters, northwest ridge. Marcus scanned the tree line, saw nothing, but Devin never called it, unless it was real. Hostile, don't know. Gone now. They pressed on, slower now. Every step deliberate. The jungle thickened. The air grew heavy, humid, tasting of rot and rain. Liam kept checking his rifle. Nervous habit. Marcus didn't blame him. First real mission, the kind that could break you or make you. By midday, they found the wreckage. The plane had come down hard, carving a scar through the canopy before slamming into a rocky outcrop. The fuselage was split open like a tin can. No fire, no bodies, just debris scattered across 100 meters of jungle floor. Ruiz moved through the wreck, checking for survivors, for signs, for anything. He came back shaking his head. She's not here. No blood, no body. Someone pulled her out. Friendly or hostile? Marcus asked. Can't tell. Tracks lead east. Multiple people. Could be a rescue. Could be a capture. East, deeper into the valley. Exactly where Marcus didn't want to go. But orders were orders, and you didn't leave anyone behind. They followed the tracks. The jungle seemed to close in tighter, branches clawing at their uniforms, roots twisting underfoot like snares. The silence was unnatural. No birds, no insects, just the sound of their breathing, and the soft crunch of their boots on dead leaves. Devin stopped again. This time his whole body went rigid. We're being watched. Marcus felt it too, that prickling awareness, the animal part of your brain screaming that something is wrong. He signaled the team to take cover. They melted into the undergrowth, weapons ready, eyes scanning the green wall around them. Minutes passed, nothing moved, but the feeling didn't go away. Then Liam whispered, barely audible, there, 11 o'clock, a figure, standing between 2 trees, motionless, dressed in dark, ragged clothing, not military, not civilian, something else. Marcus called out, identify yourself. The figure didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there watching. Devin's scope was already on target. Say the word, Lieutenant. Marcus hesitated. Something was wrong. The figure wasn't armed, wasn't threatening, just watching. Hold fire. The figure turned and walked into the jungle, disappeared. What the hell was that? Liam breathed. Local maybe, Ruiz said, but he didn't sound convinced. They moved on. The tracks led to a village, or what used to be one. Burned out huts, collapsed roofs, walls pocked with bullet holes from some forgotten conflict. The kind of place that had died years ago and been left to rot. But someone was here recently. Fresh boot prints, disturbed ash, and in the center of the village, scratched into the dirt, a message: turn back. Liam looked at Marcus. LT. Marcus stared at the words. Someone knew they were coming. Someone wanted them gone. We keep moving. They found her an hour later. Captain Sarah Voss, sitting against a tree, hands zip-tied behind her back, uniform torn and bloodied, alive. But she wasn't alone. 5 men surrounded her, armed, militia, by the look of them. Local insurgents. They had her covered, but they weren't executing her. They were waiting. Marcus signaled his team into position. Devon had his rifle trained on the leader, a lean man with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. Ruiz and Liam flanked left and right. Marcus moved forward, weapon raised. Let her go. The scarred man looked at him, didn't raise his weapon, just looked. Then he spoke in accented but clear English. You shouldn't have come here, Lieutenant. Marcus tensed. How did he know his rank? Let her go, and we walk away. No one needs to die today. The scarred man smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You think you're here to rescue her. You're not. You're here because she wanted you here. Marcus's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? Sarah looked up, met his eyes, and Marcus saw something in her face that made his blood run cold. Not relief, not fear, guilt. I'm sorry, Marcus. The scarred man continued. 3 weeks ago, Captain Voss made contact with us. She offered to trade intelligence, flight paths, base layouts, in exchange for money and safe passage out of the country. The plane crash, she faked it, called it in herself. This whole extraction, it's a trap. For you. Marcus's mind raced. That's insane. Why? Because your command doesn't trust her anymore. They've been investigating her for months. She knew she was about to be exposed, so she needed a distraction. A mission gone wrong. A rescue attempt that ends in casualties. Blame it on enemy action. Walk away clean. You're lying. Am I? The scarred man gestured to Sarah. Ask her. Marcus stared at the captain, the woman he'd been sent to save. Sarah, tell me he's lying. She looked away. I didn't have a choice, Marcus. They were going to destroy me. My career, my life. I had debts. People were threatening my family. I made one mistake and it snowballed. I didn't know they'd send you. The world tilted. Marcus had trained with Sarah, trusted her, and she'd sold them out. How many people died because of you? She flinched. I didn't. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I just needed time. I needed out. Devon's voice was ice. Lieutenant, orders. Marcus felt the weight of his team's eyes on him. Liam looked lost. Ruiz looked betrayed. Devon just looked ready. The scarred man lowered his weapon. We have no quarrel with you, Lieutenant. We were paid to hold her until you arrived. To deliver a message. Your command knows. They've known from the start. They sent you here to clean it up. To eliminate a problem quietly. Off the books. You expect me to believe that? Check your radio. Call for exfil. See what they say. Marcus grabbed his radio. Keyed it. Overwatch. This is Delta 2-1. We have the asset. Requesting immediate extraction. Over. Static. Overwatch. Do you copy? Over. More static. Then finally a voice. Cold. Clipped. Delta 2-1. Extraction denied. Mission parameters have changed. Eliminate the asset and return on foot. Overwatch out. The radio went dead. Ruiz stared at Marcus. Did they just— Yeah. Marcus felt sick. They want us to kill her. Liam's hands were shaking. We can't do that. That's murder. That's orders. Devon said quietly. The scarred man backed away, his men following. We're leaving, Lieutenant. You have a choice to make. Follow orders and kill a traitor, or disobey and become one yourself. Either way, you won't make it out of this valley without blood on your hands. They disappeared into the jungle. Silence fell, heavy, suffocating. Sarah looked up at Marcus. Tears streaked her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But please don't do this. I can disappear. I'll never come back. Just let me go. Marcus looked at his team, at Ruiz, who'd saved lives on 3 continents, at Devon, who'd never questioned an order in his life, at Liam, who still believed in heroes. What do we do, LT? Ruiz asked. Marcus closed his eyes, thought about duty, about honor, about the 17 missions where he'd followed orders without question, because orders were what kept chaos at bay. But he also thought about justice, about mercy, about the fact that if they pulled that trigger, they'd never be able to take it back. He opened his eyes. Cut her loose. Devon's head snapped up. LT, cut her loose. We're not executioners. We disobey this. We're done. Court-martialed. Dishonorably discharged. Maybe prison. I know. Liam moved forward, cutting Sarah's zip ties with his knife. She collapsed, sobbing. Marcus keyed his radio one more time. Overwatch. This is Delta 2-1. Mission failed. Asset escaped. We're returning to base. Delta 2-1 out. He turned to Sarah. You disappear. Completely. If I ever see your face again, I'll finish what we started. Understood? She nodded. Unable to speak. Go. She ran, vanished into the jungle like a ghost. The team stood in silence. Finally, Liam spoke. What now? Now. Marcus shouldered his rifle. Now we walk out of this valley, together, and we live with what we chose. They started moving. The fog was lifting. The jungle didn't seem as dark anymore. And as they climbed out of the valley of silence, Marcus realized something. Maybe the valley wasn't cursed. Maybe it was just a place where people were forced to see who they really were, where the orders stopped mattering, and the only thing left was the choice you made when no one else was watching. By the time they reached the firebase 3 days later, the official report had already been filed. Mission failure. Asset here. Enemy action. The story was clean, neat, a lie. Marcus was called into the commander's office. He expected charges, expected the end. Instead, the commander looked at him with unreadable eyes and said, "Your report says the asset was killed in a firefight. Is that correct, Lieutenant?" Marcus met his gaze. "Yes, sir." A long pause, then dismissed. Marcus walked out. The door closed behind him, and he understood. Command knew. They'd always known, but sometimes the lie was more valuable than the truth. Sometimes you needed men who would follow orders, and sometimes you needed men who wouldn't. His team was waiting outside. They didn't say anything, didn't need to. They'd walked into the valley of silence as soldiers following orders. They'd walked out as something else, something harder to define, something that understood that courage wasn't just about pulling the trigger. It was about knowing when not to. As the sun set over the firebase, Marcus thought about Sarah, wondered if she'd made it, wondered if she'd ever find peace. He'd never know, but he knew this. In that valley, faced with an impossible choice, his team had chosen mercy over murder, humanity over orders. And if that made them traitors, then maybe being a traitor wasn't the worst thing you could be. The real enemy wasn't across the battlefield. It was in the mirror. It was the version of yourself that stopped asking questions, that stopped seeing the people you were ordered to kill as people, that traded your conscience for a clean service record. Marcus had seen men become that, had seen them hollow out from the inside, until nothing remained but obedience and ghosts. His team hadn't become that, not today, maybe not ever. And as the stars came out over the mountains, Marcus made himself a promise. The next time someone gave him an order that required him to check his humanity at the door, he'd remember the Valley of Silence. He'd remember that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with bullets. They're fought in the space between what you're told to do and what you know is right. That's where courage lives, in that space, in that choice. And if the cost of that courage was everything he'd worked for, every rank he'd earned, every medal on his chest, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, you can lose your career, your reputation, your freedom, but the one thing you can't afford to lose is the ability to look yourself in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. The Valley of Silence had tested them, and they'd passed, not because they followed orders, but because they didn't. And in the quiet of that firebase, surrounded by men who'd made the same impossible choice, Marcus finally understood what leadership really meant. It wasn't about commanding. It wasn't about tactics or strategy or following the chain of command. It was about being the kind of person others could follow when the orders stopped making sense, when the mission compromised everything you believed in, when the only compass you had left was the one inside your chest. Some people call that insubordination. Marcus called it being human. And in a world that demanded soldiers be anything but, that was the most dangerous thing you could be. But it was also the only thing worth being. If this story moved you, made you think, or reminded you why courage means standing up even when the cost is everything, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts. Tell us about a time you had to choose between orders and conscience. And if you want more stories that challenge what it means to be a soldier, a leader, a human being in impossible situations, hit that subscribe button, because the hardest stories to tell are the ones that matter most, and we're just getting started.